Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished setting up his small stage in the corner of Murphy's Cantina. The lights were dim, and the air smelled of cheap alcohol and fried food. This was his life now, performing magic tricks and telling jokes to drunk miners and tired travelers on Frontier Station Omega 7. The station sat at the edge of human space, a place where people came when they had nowhere else to go. Jake fit right in. He had been a combat medic in the war, but that was 3 years ago. Now he just wanted to forget about blood and screaming and the friends he could not save. The crowd was small tonight. Maybe 20 people scattered around the dirty tables. Most of them were humans, but Jake could see a few aliens in the back. That was normal now. Ever since the war ended, refugees from all over the galaxy came looking for work and safety. Jake pulled out his deck of cards and started his show. He made coins disappear and reappear behind people's ears. He told funny stories about space pirates and crazy station managers. A few people laughed. Most just drank and ignored him. But there was one who watched everything. She sat alone in the darkest corner of the cantina. Jake could barely see her at first. She was small and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her species was called Veltar, and there were many of them on the station lately. They were refugees from a civil war that had destroyed there. Homeworld. The girl did not laugh at his jokes. She did not clap when he did his tricks. She just sat there, staring at him with those big sad eyes. Jake found it hard to concentrate with her watching him like that. When his show ended, most people went back to their drinks. Jake packed up his cards and counted his money. It was not much, but it would buy him food and rent for another day. As he got ready to leave, he looked back at the corner table. The alien girl was still there. She had not touched her food. Her drink sat full and cold in front of her. Jake walked over to her table. Up close, he could see she was young, maybe the same age as a human teenager. Her clothes were old and patched. Her hands were covered in strange scars that looked like they had been carved into her skin on purpose. "Mind if I sit down?" Jake asked. The girl looked up at him with surprise. She nodded slowly. Jake sat across from her. "I'm Jake. What's your name?" "Zarathy," she said in broken standard galactic. Her voice was soft and scared. "Did you like the show?" Jake asked. Zarathy was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I come here every night. I listen to the laughing. It reminds me of before." "Before what?" "Before the burning time," she whispered. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He had heard about the Veltar Civil War. Whole cities had been destroyed. Millions had died. The survivors were scattered across the galaxy, most of them with nothing but the clothes on their backs. "Where are you from?" Jake asked gently. "Veltar Prime, the northern settlements." Zarathy's hands shook as she spoke. "My family had a farm. We grew crystal fruits. The trees were so beautiful when they bloomed." "What happened to your family?" Zarathy's eyes filled with tears. "The soldiers came. They said we were enemies because we followed the old ways. They burned our farm. They killed my parents and my brother. I tried to help them, but I was too small." Jake had seen that look before, in the war, on the faces of soldiers who had lost everything. It was the look of someone whose world had been broken into pieces. "How did you get here?" he asked. "I hid in the crystal caves for many days. Then the rescue ships came. They brought me to the refugee camps. I stayed there for a year, then got transport here." Zarathy wiped her eyes. "The camp leaders said I was lucky. Most people did not survive." Jake did not feel like she was lucky. She looked like she was barely surviving now. "Why do you come to watch my show?" he asked. "Because when people laugh, it sounds like home. Before the burning time, My family laughed together every night after dinner. We would tell stories and play games. The sound was ... warm. Jake's heart ached for this broken girl. He pulled out his deck of cards. "Want to learn a trick?" he asked. For the first time, Zarathi's eyes showed a spark of interest. "You would teach me?" "Sure, it's not hard." Jake showed her a simple card trick where she could make a card disappear and reappear. Her fingers were clumsy at first, but she was eager to learn. When she finally got it right, she smiled just a little bit. "That's amazing," she said. "You did good. Practice that tonight, and I'll teach you another one tomorrow." "You will come back tomorrow?" "I perform here every night." "Same time." Zarathi nodded. "I will practice." As Jake walked back to his small room that night, he could not stop thinking about the alien girl. Something about her reminded him of the wounded soldiers he used to treat. They had that same lost look, that same careful way of moving like they expected pain at any moment. He looked at his hands in the dim hallway light. These hands had once saved lives, had pulled soldiers back from the edge of death. Now they just did card tricks for drunk strangers. Maybe it was time to help someone again. When Jake got to his room, he sat on his bed and thought about Zarathi. She was alone in a strange place, surrounded by people who did not understand her pain. But she still came to his show every night, looking for something to remind her of happiness. Tomorrow, he would teach her another trick. Maybe that would help. Her smile again. Jake fell asleep thinking about crystal fruit trees and the sound of laughter around a dinner table, and wondering if he could help one broken girl find her way back to joy. The next night, Jake arrived at Murphy's Cantina early. He wanted to make sure Zarathi had a good seat for his show. When he looked around the room, he found her in the same corner table, waiting for him. She waved at him shyly. Jake waved back and felt something warm in his chest. It had been a long time since someone had been happy to see him that his show went better that night. Maybe it was because he knew Zarathi was watching, or maybe he just felt more like his old self. The crowd laughed more, and a few people even clapped at the end. After the show, Jake sat down with Zarathi again. She showed him the card trick he had taught her the night before. Her movements were smoother now, more confident. "You practiced," Jake said with a smile, "many times. The other refugees think I am strange, playing with cards all day." "Did you tell them where you learned it?" Zarathi shook her head. "They do not trust humans much. They think you will leave us when you get bored." "And what do you think?" Zarathi looked at him carefully. "I think you are different. You have sad eyes." "Like me. People with sad eyes understand each other." Jake felt something twist in his stomach. She was right. He did have sad eyes. The war had given them to him. "Want to learn a new trick?" he asked, changing the subject. "Yes, please." This time, Jake taught her how to make a coin appear from thin air. It was harder than the card trick, but Zarathi was a quick learner. As she practiced, Jake noticed the scars on her hands more clearly. They were not random cuts. They formed patterns, like someone had carved symbols into her skin with great care. "Those marks," Jake said gently. "What are they?" Zarathi's hands stopped moving. She pulled them back into her lap. "Punishment marks," she whispered. "Punishment for what?" "For being alive when my family died." Jake felt sick. "Who did that to you?" Zarathi was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "After the soldiers burned our farm, they took me prisoner. They said I was valuable because I was young and could work. They kept me in a camp for almost a year." Jake's hands clenched into fists. "They hurt you?" "Every day. They said I needed to pay for my family's crimes against the state. The marks were to remind me that I was nothing, that no one would ever care if I lived or died." "That's not true," Jake said firmly. "How do you know?" Because I care? Zarothy looked up at him with surprise. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave enough to keep going after losing everything. I know you're smart enough to learn new things. I know you still hope for happiness, or you wouldn't come here every night to listen to people laugh. Tears started running down Zarothy's blue cheeks. The soldiers said I was broken, that no one could ever fix me. The soldiers were wrong. Jake reached across the table and took her hands in his. The scars felt rough under his fingers, but he did not pull away. I was a medic in the war, he said. I learned that broken things can heal if you take care of them the right way. It takes time, but it happens. You think I can heal? I know you can. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Zarothy met every night after his shows. He taught her more magic tricks, and she told him stories about her life before the war. She had been happy once, with a loving family and dreams for the future. But she also told him about the camp where they kept her prisoner, the guards who beat her when she cried for her family, the way they made her feel worthless and alone, the nightmares that still came every night. Jake shared some of his own stories too. He told her about the soldiers he could not save, about the guilt that ate at him every day. He did not tell her about the drinking or the way he sometimes woke up screaming from his own nightmares. We are both broken, Zarothy said one night. Maybe, Jake said. But we're helping each other, aren't we? She smiled at that. Her smiles were getting easier and more real. Other people on the station started to notice the friendship between Jake and Zarothy. Some humans thought it was strange that he spent so much time with an alien refugee. Some Veltar worried that she was getting too attached to someone who might leave. Elder Kethmer was one of the worried ones. He was an old Veltar who tried to look after the younger refugees. One night he approached Jake after his show. May I speak with you? The elder asked. Sure. They walked to a quiet corner of the cantina. Kethmer looked serious. You have been kind to young Zarothy, he said. She's a good kid. Yes, she is. But I must tell you something important. In our culture, when someone saves another person's life or spirit, it creates a bond called soul binding. It is very serious. What does that mean? It means you become responsible for that person's well-being. If you break the bond by leaving or hurting them, it can destroy them completely. Jake felt a cold fear in his chest. Are you saying Zarothy has formed this bond with me? I believe so. She speaks of you constantly. You are the first person she has trusted since her family died. Her healing depends on you now. I never meant for that to happen. I know, but it has happened. You must decide if you are willing to accept this responsibility. That night, Jake could not sleep. He walked around the station thinking about what Elder Kethmer had said. He had come here to hide from responsibility, to avoid caring about anyone again. Now he found himself caring deeply about a broken alien girl who needed him to keep living. The next morning, he went to talk to Dr. Lisa Carter, the station's medical officer. She was one of the few people on the station he considered a friend. I need advice, he told her. About what? There's this kid, one of the Veltar refugees. She's been through hell, and she's got bad trauma. I've been trying to help her, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. Lisa looked at him carefully. This wouldn't be about that girl you've been talking to every night, would it? Jake's face turned red. Maybe. Jake, you can't fix everyone. You tried that in the war, and it nearly destroyed you. This is different. How? Jake thought about Zarothy's smile when she got a magic trick right, about the way she laughed when he told funny stories, about how she was starting to hope again. Because she's getting better, he said. And helping her makes me feel like myself again. Lisa smiled. Then I think you already know what you need to do. Jake's friendship with Zarothy grew stronger every day. She learned new magic tricks quickly and even started helping him with his shows. Her shy smile and gentle way of speaking made the audience like her. Some nights, people clapped more for her than for Jake, but the real magic happened after the shows, when they sat together and talked. Zarathy was getting braver about sharing her feelings. She told Jake about her nightmares and the panic attacks that made it hard to breathe. Jake shared breathing exercises he had learned from military doctors. When the fear comes, he taught her, count your breaths. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. It helps your body remember it's safe. Zarathy practiced this every day. Slowly, the panic attacks became less frequent. Jake also started telling her about his own war experiences. Not the violent parts, but the times when he saved lives and helped wounded soldiers. Zarathy listened carefully to every story. You were a healer, she said one night. I tried to be. You still are. You are healing me. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. He had forgotten what it felt like to help someone and see them get better. As weeks passed, Zarathy changed in amazing ways. She stood straighter and spoke louder. She started eating better and sleeping through the night more often. Other Veltar refugees noticed the change and began asking Jake for advice with their own problems. But then something happened that tested everything. One morning, Zarathy did not come to Jake's show. He waited for her, checking the door every few minutes. When she still had not appeared by the end of his performance, he went looking for her. He found her in the Veltar refugee section of the station, curled up in her small room and shaking with fever. Her blue skin had turned pale and she was breathing hard. Zarathy. Jake knelt beside her bed. What's wrong? Sick, she whispered. Started yesterday. Getting worse. Jake felt her forehead. She was burning up. This was not a normal fever. He ran to get Dr. Carter. When she examined Zarathy, her face became serious. This is Veltar wasting sickness, she said. It's a genetic condition that shows up when they're under extreme stress. Her body is basically shutting down. Can you treat it? I can slow it down, but I don't have the right medicines here. She needs Veltar medical compounds that cost a fortune. Without them, she has maybe a week. Jake felt the world spin around him. How much do the medicines cost? More than most people see in a lifetime. There's a medical transport coming through next week, but they want payment up front. Jake counted all his money that night. It was not even close to enough. He asked other people on the station for help, but most barely had enough to take care of themselves. For 3 days, Jake stayed by Zarathy's bedside. She got weaker and weaker. Sometimes she was delirious with fever and called out for her dead family. Other times she was aware enough to hold Jake's hand. I'm scared, she whispered during one of her clear moments. Don't be scared. I'm here. What? If I die like this? What if the last thing I remember is being afraid? Jake squeezed her hand. You're not going to die. I won't let that happen. But privately, he was terrified. Dr. Carter said Zarathy's condition was getting worse faster than expected. She might not even last until the medical transport arrived. On the 4th day, Jake was sitting beside Zarathy's bed when she started, having hallucinations from the fever. She screamed and tried to fight invisible enemies. They're coming back, she cried. The soldiers are coming back. Jake held her shoulders gently. There are no soldiers. You're safe. I can't go back to the camp. Please don't let them take me. No one is taking you anywhere. I promise. But in her fever dreams, Zarathy could not hear him. She relived her worst memories over and over. Jake stayed with her through every nightmare, talking softly and holding her hand. During one particularly bad episode, Zarathy suddenly became very still. She looked right at Jake with clear eyes. You came into my dreams, she said in wonder. What do you mean? I saw you in the darkness. You were made of light, and you chased away all the bad memories. You saved me even in my sleep. Jake felt tears. On his face? I'll always save you if I can. I know. That's why I'm not afraid anymore. After that, Zarathi's fever broke a little, but she was still very weak. Dr. Carter said it was only temporary. Without the proper medicine, she would get worse again soon. That night, Jake walked around the station, thinking harder than he had ever thought in his life. He had saved up money for 3 years, planning to buy passage to the inner systems, where he could start a new life. The money was everything he had worked for since leaving the military. But what good was a new life if Zarathi died? The next morning, a wealthy trader named Marcus Webb approached Jake. Webb had heard about Zarathi's condition and Jake's desperate search for money. I have the medicines she needs, Webb said. How much? Jake asked. All your savings, plus a 10-year work contract. You'll be bonded to me, working off the debt. It's essentially slavery, but legal. Jake stared at the man. 10 years of his life in exchange for Zarathi's medicine. He would be 40 years old before he was free again. His dreams of reaching the core worlds and starting over would be gone forever. But then he thought about Zarathi's smile when she learned a new magic trick. He thought about how she had started to hope again after losing everything. He thought about her calling him a healer. Where do I sign? Jake said. Elder Kethmer tried to talk him out of it. You don't understand what you're giving up, the old. Veltar said, I understand perfectly. This level of sacrifice, it's beyond what anyone should ask of another person. Jake looked through the window at Zarathi's room, where she lay dying. She didn't ask. I'm offering. He signed the contract that afternoon. The medicine was delivered within hours. Jake watched Dr. Carter inject it into Zarathi's 4-line, and within minutes, her breathing became easier. Other refugees gathered outside her room to watch. Word spread quickly through the station about what Jake had done. Some humans called him crazy, but the Veltar refugees looked at him with something close to worship. He gave up his freedom for one of us, they whispered to each other. When Zarathi woke up the next morning, she was weak but alert. Jake was sitting beside her bed, as he had been for days. Jake, she said softly. Hey there, how do you feel? Better. Much better. She tried to sit up, and Jake helped her. The medicine worked? Yes. How did you pay for it? Jake hesitated. He did not want to tell her about the contract, did not want her to feel guilty, but Zarathi saw the truth in his eyes. What did you do? I made a deal. What kind of deal? Jake explained about the work contract, about giving up 10 years of his life. Zarathi's eyes filled with tears. You gave up everything for me? She whispered. It wasn't everything. It was? Just money and time. It was your future. Jake took her hand. My future is helping you get better. Everything else can wait. News of Jake's sacrifice spread through the station like wildfire. Some people thought he was crazy for giving up 10 years of his life for an alien refugee. Others were amazed by what he had done. But everyone was talking about it. Zarathi recovered quickly with the proper medicine, but she was deeply troubled by what Jake had given up for her. She barely ate and would not meet his eyes when he visited. You should not have done it, she said one day. I had to. No, you didn't. I'm just one person. Your life is worth more than mine. Jake sat down beside her bed. That's not how I see it. How do you see it? I see a brave girl who survived terrible things and still finds reasons to smile. I see someone who makes magic tricks look like real magic because she puts her whole heart into everything she does. I see someone worth saving. Zarathi started, crying. But now you're trapped. You can't leave this place for 10 years because of me. and I wasn't planning to leave anyway. Yes, you were. I heard you talking to other humans about going to the core worlds. Jake was quiet for a moment. She was right. He had been planning to leave. But something had changed in the weeks they had been friends. Maybe I found something better than the core worlds, he said. What? A reason to stay? Over the next few days, Jake started his work contract with Marcus Webb. The work was hard, loading cargo, cleaning ship hulls, doing maintenance in dangerous parts of the station. Webb treated him like property, not like a person, but Jake did not complain. Every night he came back tired and dirty, but he still visited Zarathi. She was getting stronger every day, and that made all the hard work worth it. Other things were changing on the station, too. Dr. Carter started spending her free time helping Veltar refugees with medical problems. A few human merchants began offering fair prices to Veltar traders instead of cheating them. Even Murphy, who owned the cantina, started serving Veltar food alongside human dishes. People are being nicer to us, Zarathi observed one evening. Good, Jake said. I think it's because of what you did. They see that a human cared enough about one of us to give up everything. It makes them think maybe we're worth caring about too. Jake had not thought about it that way, but she might be right. His actions seemed to have started something bigger than just helping one person. Then disaster struck the station. A plague ship arrived from the Outer Rim, carrying refugees from a mining colony. The ship was quarantined immediately, but it was too late. Within days, a deadly disease began spreading through the station. The plague affected both humans and Veltar, but it was especially dangerous for people who were already weak or sick. Zarathi, still recovering from her recent illness, was among the first to catch it. Jake found her collapsed in her room, burning with fever and struggling to breathe. The disease worked fast. Dr. Carter said people were dying within hours of showing symptoms. We're completely overwhelmed, Dr. Carter told Jake. I've got 50 patients and no medicine. The station medical supplies weren't designed for something like this. What does she need? A synthetic compound called Helix 9. It's the only thing that can stop this plague. But we don't have any, and the nearest medical station is days away. Jake felt despair wash over him. He had already given everything to save Zarathi once. He had nothing left to trade, no money, no freedom to bargain with. But then he remembered Marcus Webb. The wealthy trader had connections throughout the sector. If anyone could get emergency medical supplies, it would be him. Jake found Webb, his private office, counting profits from his latest deals. I need your help, Jake said. Webb looked up with amusement. You need more help? You're already working for me for the next 10 years. The plague. People are dying. Can you get Helix 9? Compound? Maybe. Why should I? Because it's the right thing to do. Webb laughed. The right thing? Boy, you've already proven you don't understand business. Yes, I can get the compound. But it will cost more than this entire station is worth. How much? Let's see. There are about 200 people on this station who might need treatment. At current emergency prices, we're talking about 2 million credits. Jake's heart sank. That was impossible money, more than anyone on the station could raise. But Webb was not finished. However, I might be willing to make another deal. What kind of deal? I'll buy the compound and distribute it for free, but I want something in return. I want your story. My story? The tale of the human who gave up his freedom for an alien refugee. It's already becoming famous across the sector. I want exclusive rights to tell that story, to make entertainment programs and books about it. The profits could be enormous. Jake stared at him. You want to make money off what I did to help Zarathi? Business is business. Your story inspires people, and inspiration sells. Do we have a deal? Jake thought about Zarathi lying in her bed, fighting for her life again. He thought about all the other people on the station who would die if he said no. "Yes," he said, "we have a deal." Webb smiled and started making calls. Within hours, a fast courier ship arrived with the Helix 9 compound. Dr. Carter immediately began treating the sickest patients. Zarathi was among the first to receive the medicine. Jake sat with her as the compound worked its way through her system, slowly bringing down her fever and easing her breathing. "You saved me again," she whispered. When she was finally able to speak, "Webb saved you. I just made another deal." "What kind of deal?" Jake explained about giving up the rights to his story. Zarathi's eyes went wide. "So now everyone in the galaxy will know what you did?" "Looks like it." "Are you embarrassed?" Jake thought about it. "No. If it helps people see that humans and aliens can care about each other, maybe it's worth it." As the plague was brought under control, more news reached the station. Jake's story was indeed spreading across the galaxy, but not the way Webb had planned. Instead of just entertainment, it was becoming a symbol of hope for refugee communities everywhere. Alien rights organizations were raising money to help refugees. Some governments were changing their policies to be more welcoming. And everywhere, people were talking about the human who gave up everything to save one alien girl. Elder Kethmer came to visit Jake as the crisis ended. "You have done something remarkable," the old Veltar said. "I just helped a friend." "No, you did much more than that. You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of at their best. You proved that love and sacrifice can cross any boundary." "I never meant to prove anything. The best proof comes from people who aren't trying to prove anything. They just do what's right because it's right." As Jake walked through the station that night, he saw changes everywhere. Humans and aliens were working together to repair damage from the plague. Children of different species were playing together. In Murphy's Cantina, mixed groups were sharing tables and stories. It was not perfect, and there were still problems. But something had shifted. People were looking at each other differently, seeing possibilities instead of just differences. And at the center of it all was one recovering alien girl who had learned to smile again, and one human man who had discovered that the best way to heal himself was to help someone else heal first. 6 months after the plague, Jake's life had changed in ways he never expected. The story of his sacrifice had spread across the galaxy, but not as entertainment like Marcus Webb had planned. Instead, it had become something much more powerful. Alien rights groups from dozens of worlds had heard about Jake's actions. They came together to raise money, not for Webb's entertainment empire, but to buy out Jake's work contract. The amount they collected was staggering, enough to pay Webb 3 times what Jake owed him. "I don't understand," Jake said when Elder Kethmer brought in the news. "Why would strangers care about my contract?" "Because you proved something important," the old Veltar explained. "You showed that different species can truly care for each other. Many people want to support that message." Webb was happy to take the money and release Jake from his contract. But the Alien Rights Coalition had a bigger offer for Jake. "We want you to work with refugee communities across the frontier," their representative explained. "Your experience with trauma recovery and your friendship with Zarathi have given you unique skills. We can offer you a good salary and the chance to help thousands of people." Jake looked at Zarathi, who was sitting beside him during the meeting. She had recovered completely from both her illnesses and was now helping him with his nightly shows. Her confidence had grown so much that she often performed alone while Jake watched from the audience. "What do you think?" he asked her. "I think you were born to help people heal," she said. "And I think I was born to help you do it." They accepted the offer together. Their first assignment was a refugee camp on the edge of Centauri space. Thousands of people from a dozen different species lived there, all fleeing wars or disasters on their home worlds. Most had trauma similar to what Zarathi had experienced. Jake and Zarathi developed a new kind of therapy that combined entertainment with healing. Jake would perform magic tricks and tell stories, while Zarathi helped translate and explain the deeper meanings behind the tricks. Magic is about believing impossible things can happen, she would tell groups of traumatized children. If you can believe a coin can disappear and reappear, you can believe your pain can disappear and happiness can reappear. The children loved her. She understood their fear and sadness in ways that most adults could not. When she showed them that she had once been as scared as they were, they began to believe they could heal too. Jake watched her work with amazement. The broken girl he had met in Murphy's Cantina was gone, replaced by a confident young woman who had found her life's purpose in helping others. Their partnership became famous throughout the refugee camps. Other workers called them the magic healers because of the way they could help people recover from trauma through entertainment and storytelling. But the real magic was in their friendship. They had both been broken by war and loss, but they had healed each other through simple acts of caring. Now they were using that healing to help others. One evening, after a particularly successful session with a group of war orphans, Jake and Zarathi sat outside their tent looking at the stars. "You ever miss your old life?" Zarathi asked. "Which old life? The one where I was a soldier, or the one where I was hiding in Murphy's Cantina?" "Either one." Jake thought about it. "No, this is the life I was supposed to have. I just didn't know it until I met you." "I used to think my life ended when my family died," Zarathi said. "But really, it was just beginning. I had to lose everything to find out who I really was." "And who are you really?" Zarathi smiled. "I'm someone who helps people remember how to hope." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching ships come and go from the spaceport. "Jake," Zarathi said finally. "What? Do you remember what Elder Kethmer said about soul binding?" Jake nodded. "He said I became responsible for your well-being. He was wrong about one thing. It's not just you being responsible for me. We're responsible for each other now. That's what real soul binding means." Jake smiled. "I like that better." 3 years later, they were working at their 5th refugee camp when news came that would change everything again. The Veltar Civil War had finally ended. Peace treaties were signed, and reconstruction had begun on the homeworlds. Many Veltar refugees were planning to return home. Elder Kethmer came to visit Jake and Zarathi to discuss the future. "The new government wants to invite you both to Veltar Prime," he said. "They want to establish a trauma recovery center based on your methods. You would be honored guests." Zarathi's eyes lit up with excitement, but then she looked worried. "Would you want to go?" she asked Jake. "It's your home world. The decision should be yours." "It's not my home anymore," she said quietly. "My home is wherever we're helping people together." Elder Kethmer smiled. "Then perhaps you should know that the Coalition has another offer. They want to establish a permanent institute for refugee trauma recovery. You would train other teams to do what you do, expanding the program to help millions of people across the galaxy." Jake and Zarathi looked at each other. They had started as two broken people trying to heal themselves. Now they had the chance to help heal an entire galaxy. "Where would this institute be?" Jake asked. "Frontier Station Omega 7, Elder Kethmer said with a grin. "They're renovating the old cargo bays into medical and training facilities. Murphy's Cantina will become the social center where different species can meet and share stories." Jake laughed. "Back where it all started. Sometimes the best journeys are circles." Zarathi said they accepted the offer immediately. On their last night at the refugee camp, Jake performed one final show. The audience was huge. People from every species in the camp came to watch. Zarathi stood beside him as his partner, no longer the frightened girl who had watched from dark corners. Tonight we say goodbye, Jake told the crowd. But we're not really leaving. Everyone we've helped here will help someone else someday. The healing spreads from person to person, like magic. Magic is real, Zarothy added. It's what happens when someone cares about you enough to sacrifice for you. It's what happens when you learn to care about yourself enough to heal. And it's what happens when you use your healing to help others. The audience erupted in applause. Children who had been silent when Jake and Zarothy first arrived were now laughing and cheering. Adults who had seemed hopeless were smiling and making plans for their futures. After the show, people lined up to say goodbye. Many of them had stories to share about how Jake and Zarothy had helped them. Some were planning to train as healers themselves, wanting to spread the work to other camps. "You saved my daughter's life," one father told them. "She had not spoken since our city was bombed. Now she sings every day." "You taught me that humans could be trusted," said an elderly alien woman. "I will never forget your kindness." One by one, they said their goodbyes. Each person had been touched by the simple truth that healing was possible, that broken things could be made whole again through caring and patience. When everyone had gone, Jake and Zarothy packed their few belongings. Tomorrow they would start the journey back to Frontier Station, Omega 7, where Jake had once hidden from the world, and Zarothy had sat alone in dark corners. "Are you ready to go home?" Jake asked. Zarothy looked around the empty tent one last time, then smiled at him. "I've been home for years. Home isn't a place, it's the people who care about you." As their transport ship lifted off the next morning, Jake watched the refugee camp disappear below them. Somewhere down there, people were waking up with hope. Instead of fear, children were learning to play again. Adults were making plans for better futures. It had all started with a simple magic trick and two broken people who decided to help each other heal. Now it was spreading across the galaxy. One person at a time, Jake reached over and took Zarothy's hand as they flew toward their new adventure. Her scars were still there, but they no longer defined her. She had transformed them into proof that survival was possible, that healing was real, that love could triumph over even the worst trauma. "Ready for the next show?" he asked. Zarothy squeezed his hand and smiled. "Let's go make some magic." Outside the ship's windows, the stars stretched endlessly in all directions, each one representing a world where someone might need to remember how to hope. Jake and Zarothy were ready to help them learn. The girl who had once been broken was now a healer. The man who had hidden from his calling was now living his true purpose. Together, they had discovered that the greatest magic was not making things disappear and reappear. The greatest magic was helping people find themselves again.